Hello, everyone. Francisco here with a new guest. I got Matt next to me. I'm going to do the full intro in a few seconds, but first, let me share. I am Francisco, Head of Growth and Ecosystem at Eventify, and full lifecycle event technology platform to run events, conference, look after your agenda, and sponsors, attendees, all in one. Today, I'm pumped because Matt has amazing thoughts on how to run exhibitions, how to build really immersive experiences, engaging experiences. So let's go with the intro. My team put something together for you, Matt. Please stay
Yeah,
seated.
fire away.
It says
Yeah, fire away,
today we
brother.
are joined. Today we are joined by Matt Kleinrock, CEO of Rockway Exhibits Plus Events. Matt and his team don't just build trade shows booths. They design strategic brand experiences that actually move pipeline and drive business outcomes. What I love about Matt's approach is captured in Rockway core values. The details matter. It's not about showing up the biggest, fashiest booth. It's about being intentional and strategic, understanding where your customers is physically, mentally, then designing experiences that resonate. Matt is also passionate about leadership, cultivating change in organizations, and he runs the Rockway Mastermind series focused on elevating how event professionals think about their work. He believes the old trade show playbook is dead. He's going to tell us what is to replacing it. Matt, welcome to the show. Finally.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Francisco. I appreciate it. It's nice to be on the other side of it because we have our own podcast that we run so much. So um, nice to have you worry about the stress of introducing and hosting. So this is good.
Yeah, that's great. This is not like 2 hour podcast as the Diary of CEO, but we can make
Oh
it funny.
yeah,
We can make
those
it funny for sure.
those are long, and I don't know if you can write as clickbaity of titles as they can either. So
Oh yeah, it's true. It's true. That's great. So maybe for people to know, like maybe you want to share quickly where you are right now and your own thoughts, kind of your long
yeah.
story.
Yeah, so we are I think conventionally people would consider us an exhibit house, right? We don't really consider ourselves an exhibit house anymore. We really consider ourselves like a strategic and experiential trade show and event partner, right? I mean, we're working with our customers. Majority of our customers are, you know, B2B businesses that are exhibiting at trade shows multiple times per year. They are reliant, dependent on these trade shows for customer retention, for new leads, for pipeline acceleration. And we really work on them with everything from their strategy to the design, the experience they're creating, and then obviously the build and the logistics side of what they're doing to execute a trade show booth. And then the other area that we dabble in is we do some design and build work for some conferences, not really on the show contractor side of things, but more for smaller events. Maybe ones that don't require a show contractor.
Makes sense. So let's go straight to the nitty gritty stuff because we mentioned the old trade show playbook at the very beginning during your introduction.
Yeah.
So the question for you is, you recently wrote that the old trade show playbook is pretty much dead. For brands still running the same booth year after year, what specifically has changed that make that approach no longer work?
Yeah, good question. So I think that saying old playbook, right? I mean, this is the playbook that I think it's not exactly like these companies have a playbook, but what they're doing is they're sort of operating and going about their trade show business the way that they used to. And I think that the world has kind of changed, right? COVID was a big catalyst for this because I think prior COVID, what you had was a lot of companies spending a lot of money on trade shows and events. And really the kind of old story was that they're expensive. We don't know if they return on investment, and we show up just because our competitors do or because we always have or we're supporting the association. Well, what ended up happening was COVID happened, everything shut down. And I think that these companies went 16 to 20 plus months and their pipelines dropped, their revenues dropped. They started realizing like, wow, events, they're not really sure exactly how, but they are impacting
Exactly.
pipeline and sales. So fast forward to now, and I think the real difference is that executives and companies realize that events are a major player in their go-to-market strategy and their sales and marketing strategy. So kind of, I think the playbooks have to change, because you also fast forward to now, what do audiences and people want? They don't want to be transactional. They don't want to be sold to. They, they don't need to leave their house to get the keynotes and the education anymore. It's all online. So when they leave their house, when they go spend 3-4 days at an industry conference, I mean, all of the data points towards exactly what they want, right? They want to learn. They want to network with peers in industry, and they want to solve the problems that they have. So I think kind of new playbook is revolving around that. How do you orchestrate events? And then as an exhibitor or as a sponsor, how do you do those things for your audience and for your customer? So that kind of dwindles down into the new playbook, and kind of the way that I think companies have to show up at trade shows, partner events, and it is being more experiential and less kind of show up and throw up and pitch.
Yeah, I love that. Would you say that executives finally realize the value of events?
Yeah, I mean, I think some. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a long way to go in terms of quantifying ROI and attribution and really making events a real player. But one of the trends that I'm seeing is somewhere in the area of like sales enablement. Some companies that I think really have their stuff together are putting somebody in the seat on the events team to be in sales enablement. So they're basically saying, hey, events has to be close to revenue. So events operating as an independent entity in the company, and then sales like showing up and following up like this, this isn't working. We need a bridge. We need a conduit. So I think that tells a lot of what's going on. And essentially, yes, I think executives have realized this. I think it will take some time, but overall, the expectation for trade shows and events is that they, help with customer retention. They drive new pipeline, whether that's current deals, new deals, sales qualified, marketing qualified leads, right? Like they want that engine to run.
Mm-hmm. What would you say, like as exhibitors, as sponsors, today they could do different on site when they are there, like footfall is happening.
Yeah.
Would you say, what is the difference? What they should do different to engage and maybe even generate more leads than the default mode?
Yeah, I mean, so look, first of all, kind of like the high level part of that conversation is having alignment. And that means that if you're going to go exhibit and you're going to go sponsor, you need alignment, meaning what do the executives, what do sales, and what do marketing want? What are we trying to accomplish? Why are we here? If you don't have that, then really what it ends up boiling down to is that we've always gone to this show, we're going to show up, we want leads, we're going to see our customer, all these kind of vague answers, right? But really you have to dial it into like, what are you trying to accomplish? From there, that I think is where you can start to differentiate yourself and go and show up in a way where you're able to drive those leads. You're able to, move the pipeline, get customer retention. But I think it matters what you're trying to accomplish. Are you speaking with mostly customers? Are you speaking with people that never heard of you before? Are you speaking with people that are like aware of you? Some are customers, some are prospects, some are in the middle of deals. Like, what's the deal cycle look like at these events? But overall, to stand out, to be different, to kind of have a show worthwhile, I think it is all about the experience that you give your audience. So just showing up at a trade show booth that you've branded yourself that you think is a nice design, and there's a lot of nice booths out there, but I mean, the amount of nice booths on the show floor I've seen that are empty is rampant, right? So it is about understanding who is the audience that's coming to your booth and how do you want to engage them, right? Like the devil is in the details. The devil is in the details of the interactions. So when they come up, how do you make it frictionless? What's the conversation? What are you showing them? What's the value you're giving them? Is it education? Sometimes it's just pure fun, excitement, engagement, and you're just trying to give them a good time. But at the end of the day, when somebody leaves your exhibit space, your activation, your sponsorship, whatever it may be, you want them to feel a certain way about your brand, and you want them to have learned about you, but not because you're feature and benefit saying, hey, here's all the cool stuff that we do. We can do all this for you. Like, no one listens to that, but they'll take it in on their own terms in an experience that you've given them. So I think it's about crafting a much higher level experience for your customers, because they're expecting that nowadays, especially in person.
Yeah. I would say the bar went way high. I feel that people got
It's way
bored
higher.
of all
Yeah.
the regular stuff. People just standing, smiling with the branded
Mhm.
clothes. That's not working anymore. Yeah.
No, the bar, that's a good point. The bar is really high. The other thing I would add to, you asking like, okay, how do you go accomplish these things? How do you do it right? I think one of the other things that people just don't pay enough attention to is pre-show and post-show, right? I mean, you got to market yourself. You got to have an offer worthwhile. You got to have target accounts. You have to utilize sales. You have to send emails, use LinkedIn, use your social media. You have to use the app that the event gives you, right? I mean, you guys know all about that. I mean, this is what you have to be able to leverage everything in your power, all the data you have in technology to get in touch with people, make an offer to them that is valuable, to get them to show up, to get them to come to meetings, to get them to come to your activations. And then on the backside, you have to follow up. You have to follow up fast. You have to follow up in a personalized manner, and it has to become a part of your sales and marketing system.
I love that. I love that. Yes, I think that as you said, there is a pre-work now to be done. Most of the times, I feel the common flow is just try to connect with the database of the exhibition, registration. Try to
Yeah.
start saying, hey, we are going to be in that booth. Come say hello. We have a giveaway, kind of, right? But also, I feel that the post, the post exhibition or the post show is really important. How, for example, you mentioned this, the devil in the details, but for example, if you were having a conversation in your booth and someone shows a certain degree of interest and mention specific details, let's say, hey, my event is serving these personas, or my event is for this government institution, and on top of the email you remember any of those details, when after a post event reply back and you include those, you win. Because
Yes.
if you send this, hey, we scanned 60 badges, and you send the same email to 60 people with zero customization,
They know it.
there is no value.
They know it. They can feel it. The face-to-face, Francisco, is just, it's like the last form of trust and authenticity in the sales and marketing world, right? I mean, people want to be face-to-face. They can feel your energy. They can gauge authenticity, develop trust. It is a catalyst, right? Like the opportunity when you're face-to-face is a true catalyst to accelerate trust and relationship faster than you can in an email, in a marketing campaign, in, even a meeting on Zoom that people would do. Face-to-face, when done correctly, has a way of catalyzing your relationship. As long as you
I
nail
love
the
this idea of the face-to-face build trust. I love this idea.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I think
Yeah, sure.
it's a solid point. Let's move on. I got more questions for you. Let's keep going. This is exciting. I love this.
Fire away.
I am also a small organizer. I run
Mhm.
an event named the London Community Week. That is
Okay.
a 3 days conference for community professionals working in B2B.
What kind of event it is for community professionals? What
It's
kind?
a conference for community professionals, people working in customer community, support community, brand communities,
Okay.
as community builders, community managers.
Mm-hmm.
So I also have kind of to deal and provide my sponsors the tools they need to make the show successful for them.
Yep.
I also care for my attendees to enjoy it, for the program that makes high quality and all that. So when I'm doing this type of learnings, for me, these are learning sessions, power coaching sessions instead of podcasts of Eventify. Because like the people we bring in is so experienced like you, Matt, and we can really learn. Like I'm not the only organizer listening to the podcast. Like we have many people checking our channel. Also, they receive our newsletter where they are going to learn everything you're sharing with us today. So honestly, what you're doing is really valuable for us.
Yeah, I mean, you just described that event as like an ecosystem, right? I mean, you have multiple mouths to feed, right? And kind of what I'm not an event organizer, right? I mean, we don't do that. We work with the brands and, we're direct, we're helping them show up to things like that, or we're doing design build work for larger events like that. But essentially that ecosystem is really important. And it is, I think an organizer's job is trying to understand, how do I match up the value that both the sponsors and attendees want? And how do I do it in a genuine, authentic way? Because, you start talking about the old playbook. I mean, man, like back in the day, and even now, a lot of these stale events, all the workshops are pitches, all the sessions are pitches. They're total BS, right? It's all pay to play. It's disingenuous, and people know it. People are smart. So I think organizers really have to start thinking about, like, okay, what does the audience and attendee want? What does the sponsor want? And how do I give them the best chance and get creative around making sure that they have this authentic experience over 2-3 days, or one day, or a half day?
Yeah, I agree 100%. Let's go. Question number 2, from cost center to pipeline driver. So there is this mindset shift you talk about, moving away from trade shows as a cost of doing business to viewing them as a pipeline mover. How do you help clients make that mental shift? What does marketing-led brand experience actually look like versus the old billboard booth approach?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something that we noted a while back that I've been talking about for a while, right? I think the idea is that companies do treat their event program, it's this kind of standalone thing inside the company, right? It's under marketing, and it's not under sales, but it kind of works with both. And it is, events get treated not as an investment, but as a cost of doing business. We always do it. We always go. We support the association. Oh, it doesn't really work. Well, it's like, yeah, I mean, all those things make sense, but like, how much strategy are you putting in place? You ask a lot of people, what are you trying to accomplish? And I've had these conversations, and there's many people can't answer it. Well, I don't know. I mean, leads and, oh, we always go. That's not an answer. Because if you're spending $500,000 a year on a marketing campaign via Meta or YouTube, and I say, what are you trying to accomplish? And you don't have an answer, you don't have a job, right?
Yeah,
At most companies. But it's okay in the event department. And it's not a knock on the event people, because it's not their problem. It's the executive's problem. It's the vice president's problem. It's the people that are running things problem. They've under-resourced, undervalued event people, and they put them in this like execution mode. And then there's nobody really sitting in the seat of like strategy and results. So then one of the key complaints is, oh, events are expensive. Events don't return ROI. Well, the only way that events can return ROI is if they're strategic, and if they're tied to sales and marketing objectives, and if they're close to revenue. So that means that you have to be intentional, and you have to rethink the way you do it. And there's a lot of companies doing a really, really good job of understanding that events touch every single part of your customer's journey. They do, especially if you have a full event program and you're spending a lot of money, right? I mean, you can influence people that have never heard of your company before, right? That's the way beginning of a customer journey. You can also influence people where they've been a customer for 25 years, and you go to an event and they have this experience, and something happens, and then they start to spend double what they spent, or they're just like, man, I'm never going to leave this company. I love working with them. Like, those are little impacts that events make from one spectrum to the other end of the spectrum, or the spectrum of where maybe you lost a customer, and then you see them at an event. You have this great conversation. They show up to a couple things. You rekindle it. You explain whatever had happened, and then they're back to working with you again. And then all the things in the middle, they all happen. So I think the quicker that companies realize that that's what's going on, and that they have to put some intentionality and strategy around these interactions, I think then this spend, which is typically 20-25% of total marketing spend, they can much better use it, and it'll stop being more of a cost of doing business, and they might want to spend more.
Yeah, I love that. No, like kind of this word keeps coming, in our conversation, strategy.
Yeah.
So I think that is the key to succeed. I feel that, even I was thinking, even as organizers, we should just reach out to our sponsors and partners and say, hey, do you need any tips, ideas for your strategy from our side, maybe? right? Because I think that, as you said, a few brands are not clear, and even though they're still supporting, but after that or the event has ended, they might feel that, oh yeah, but we didn't
Yeah.
get much, right?
I think
So
some of the bigger organizers and some of the better shows, what they're the way that they're starting to evolve. And again, I don't do this part, I'm just involved in it, but what I'm seeing them evolving on is, like I said earlier, trying to improve the ecosystem, but then they're also going to some of their better sponsors and better companies that show up and saying, what do you need? What do you need to have success with, right? Like, so if you're going to come here and spend $300,000, $400,000, $1,000,000, what do you need to have success? Now, they might give them a list of 6 key things and they can only fulfill 2 or 3 of them, because obviously a few of them may be realistic. They may want data that they're not privy to, or, but like, meet them in the middle, find a way, because what people forget, Francisco, is that the ecosystem is what pays the bills, right?
exactly.
If you don't have attendees, then you don't have sponsors, and if you don't have sponsors, you don't have a show, and it just goes on and on and on. And I think people are forgetting that at the end of the day, you create the demand, and then that's what gets everybody kind of what they want by putting on a really good show, by providing value to these two and finding a way to connect them in a way that makes sense for everybody. I think a lot of times these shows are just kind of gathering people for maybe the wrong reasons, but then bringing in sponsors, and it's like square peg round hole versus making that ecosystem, just more cohesive.
Yeah, I love that. Now, there is another idea that we have here is about meeting customers where they are. Meeting customers where they are. You wrote something that stuck, with me. We have to meet our customer where they are, physically and mentally. What does actually mean in practice?
Okay, so it's kind of what I was referencing before, right? So think about a brand that is either going to a trade show or an event or an activation. You could go as far as thinking about a mom and pop shop in a local town that sponsors something and shows up to a Little League game, right? So the idea is the audience that you're trying to get in front of, the event that they're going to, if you're not asking yourself why they are there, I think you're missing, because sometimes that's what I mean by meeting them where they're at. So what are they going to that event for? What is the value that they're seeking? You can't meet people by meeting them in where they're at means like, this might be a decent example, like a celebrity that's out to dinner with their wife and their kids. They don't want to give you an autograph. They're trying to have dinner with their wife and their kids, right? So it's probably not the best time to get an autograph. So there's probably a better time to get an autograph, because that's what they're doing in the moment. They're having a moment with their family, right? So it's the same thing in events. Like, why are the attendees there? What are they there for? And if you're just there to pitch them and you're there and you're kind of a nuisance to them, they're not going to want to engage. But if you're there supporting them, if you're there, in a way that's valuable to them, I think that is kind of what meeting your client, your audience where they are at is all about. The other way it is just really understanding. I think people show up to events with problems that they want to solve and things that they want to learn about. So if you can understand what those things are, then you can be the one that delivers that to them. And that is very powerful, because you want your audience to engage with you and leave and then think, man, like, they really get me, or like, God, that was great. So this idea of like, show up, pitch, sell your product, put a bunch of salespeople on the floor, like, I just think that doesn't work anymore. People are just they have too much information in the palm of their hand with a phone. They just don't need that anymore. They need to be met where they're at mentally.
Yeah. For example, one of the initiatives that we switch for this year is to actually, allow or sponsors to actually contribute to the program. For example, we have roundtables, from topics where the sponsors is not the expert, and they are joining as just a regular facilitator for the table.
Yeah.
So we are trying to enable them to get visibility, but in a neutral zone. So whoever is on the roundtable never feels sold. That's kind of the idea. They're still having the brands on the walls, in the booths and stuff. But the idea is no, they can actually be one more in the room, just connecting with people, rather than, like, let's say, hey, I sell AI stuff, I'm going to run our AI roundtable. No, it's not like that. No, so that's kind of what we are switching this year to try to make this, more like less salesy, but more about people. I feel that, it's an experiment for this year, but the feedback already has been quite good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would lead that with what the attendees want. What do they want to talk about? What are the topics? Can you find some common topics like that they're all concerned with, right? And once you find those topics, then how do you go find the right person to run that session for them? Because there's obviously something that they want to learn about. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great way of going about it because people do crave that peer-to-peer. They crave learning and interaction, without a doubt.
Perfect. I love that. And then, for example, we were just trying to talk about connect with the customers mentally, physically, but then how we can figure out you just said something about how do we figure out what's top of mind for the audience before even start designing the booth or building the experience.
Yeah, so I mean there's a lot of ways, right? I think as a company you should know what's top of mind with your customers, right? Like whether that's kind of qualitative or quantitative, the way you get the information, but I think from a qualitative standpoint, right? Like go talk to sales. Go talk with boots on the ground. What are your customers worried about? What are they facing? What are they dealing? What are they dealing with? What do they care about? What's relevant in their world, right? The other way is doing some research. It's never been easier to do research. I mean, a lot of times we have new customers that we're not used to working with, and we'll be asking them, hey, like, who's your ideal client? Who are you going to see at this trade show? Who are you engaging with? And once we get an understanding in general who it is, I'll use AI tools and go in and say, hey, this is my client's audience. I want to know everything about them. What are they concerned with? What's relevant in their world? What's trending? What problems do they have? And I mean, a lot of ways to do research to understand those things, because then once you understand those things, that is how you're mapping and building experience. And that is how you're going to engage them, because what companies forget, it's not about you. It's about your audience. They need to feel sense of belonging. They need to feel that you get them. People, it's an old saying, man, but like people still buy from who they know, like, and trust. They do. Yeah. I mean, the reality is there are only very, very few companies that have massive differentiating factors that are just drastically better, that are categorically different than others. Most companies are swimming in a red ocean. It's very competitive, and they're trying to find a way to differentiate. People buy from who they know, like, and trust, even companies and people, so you have to find a way to kind of bridge that for them.
Yeah. I love the analogy of the blue ocean. I love the book.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Everybody thinks they have these huge differentiators, but really we don't, right? We really don't. You think you have some, but really if you brought in a super smart consultant or a person or someone else, they'd be like, that's not a differentiator, right? I mean, they would tear you to pieces. But, so it is a matter of building that know, like, and trust. And I think some of those things that you think are differentiators, they are to a very small degree, but you have to give your customers enough experience with you for them to experience that on their own and decide it. You can't tell somebody, oh, hey, we respond super fast. How do they know? They only know once they work with you. So I think it just takes a little bit of time, and events are a great way to accelerate that.
Yeah, perfect. Now we talk about experience. So we need to consider aspects like design, learning, how to engage. The data shows attendees show up to trade shows to learn, not to be pitched. That is totally established. But brands still need to generate leads and move deals forward. Yeah. How do you balance delivering genuine value and education while still achieving business objectives? Like, we need
really
like 6.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, like I said earlier, I think first of all, establishing what those goals and objectives are is first and foremost, right? You can't have 7 of them, right? You need like top line, what are we trying to accomplish, right? Second line, what are maybe 2 goals that if we accomplish this, we know this is a success. And then maybe 3 or 4 objectives. An objective would be like, oh, we booked 50 meetings, right? Like, you just kind of scale them down, and you can never have too many because you need focus on those. A couple tips or advice or things I would have for people is like, particularly when you are an exhibitor, right? The reality is you have to stand out. You have to be different. So you have to be a little risky. You can't just be safe. Safe doesn't get you anywhere. So when you're ideating and designing and you're working with a company like us, we work from narratives, stories, themes, messaging. Like, let's find the thread. We're not just going to say, oh, you have a cool brand with black and teal and blue, Francisco. Let's take oh yeah, let's put this E and put the green. That's a decade ago, right? Now it's about trying to tie your message and your story into the experience and design that you're delivering, right? So that's overarching from like a design and how you show up, right? People have to feel like you care. They have to feel like you showed up with intention. And then after that, I said, devil's in the details. And how do you do that? By understanding, say, hey, we need to leave here with 20 meetings booked for after the show. And then we need to set and book another 20 meetings after the show as follow-up. So how do you do that? Well, you reverse engineer it. Okay. So you talk about how to have success. Well, first of all, you have to get the people there. Okay. So you have to pre-show market. You have to have an offer that's worth their while to come over to the booth and do it. And that's not magic, right? That's just hard work. So you have to have creative giveaways. You have to have creative engagement. You have to have a reason that they want to come over and engage. You also have to think about what those interactions look like. A lot of companies that are software companies, they want to run demos. And I'm always like, walk me through what the demo looks like. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm a customer and I'm going to come do a demo. Walk me through what that looks like. Is it frictionless? Is it fun? Is it different? Am I one-on-one? Am I 1-on-3? Am I 5-on-3? Why not make it a presentation? Is that possible? Are you answering personalized questions? You have to get into the details of what that experience is going to look like so that you can map it better. And when you map it right, and then your team has confidence in it, that's when you deliver on the show floor, right? You have the creative, you have the experience, you have the story that you're telling about your brand, and then they come engage with you and you crush it. And then those are what produces meetings. Those are what produces positive sentiment and emotion towards your brand to make people want to answer a follow-up and move forward. And then of course, look, you have to be using good lead track, lead gen software. You have to be good at following up. You have to extend. An event is not a singular thing that happens over 3 days, right?
Yeah.
It's a year-round thing.
Sorry for interrupting. While you are in this point of on-site, on the experience, do you have in mind or can you remember a few examples of experiences and the tactics used, like clear, a brand brought us or gave us some resources to do this and that, more like concrete ideas of kind of special things done to build these different experiences? Because probably people are curious. We talk about like create experiences that are kind of fulfilling the top of mind of the customer, but how we translate that into something that is an experience that is not just a booth or me just standing with a tablet to do my demo, or like more like concrete examples. Do you remember any?
I do, yeah. So it's about the story that you want to tell your audience about the company, right? So years back when we really started trying to do this, we were working with a company. They make dog and cat food, right? But their whole thing is that they have these fresh ingredients and so that's the story that they want to tell, that when you're buying their dog food, you're getting fresh ingredients, your dog's eating basically what you're eating. So, I mean, we built this whole booth that looked like this farm to table style booth. And then we actually had fresh produce in big wood crates, all the produce that they use in these big wood crates angled and lit up. So people could come over and like, it just had this vibe like, oh, wow, these, right? It's telling the story. and then the booth looks like a farm to table booth. That's one example.
Amazing.
Um,
Amazing.
Another example would be, we work with a company. We've worked with them for years. They're awesome to work with, but they are in the security business, right? So the whole idea story they want to tell is protect what you value, right? So the exhibit that we designed for them, in a way, looked like a very modern architectural house in a way, right? We didn't build them a house, but the structure alluded to it being a house. And on the bottom level, where I think we got creative, was we almost had windows that looked like windows in your home, but the graphic on the window made it look like you were looking like the curtains and blinds were open, and you were looking into the window and there was a family having dinner, or there were people in a bed, like all the activities that are going on in your home. It's this idea of protect what you value, protect what you love. So it was
Oh,
telling, right? It's telling that story. So then when you're engaging in conversations, you're leveraging the environment, you're leveraging this experience that you're giving, tied into your meetings and your demos and your, right? Like whatever it is
I love it.
you're doing to
Amazing.
help sell. So those are two examples. We have a lot. I mean, we have a chemical company we work with that they work with compounds, and there's all these different applications for it. We basically built like a fun house that you walk into. There's one way in and there's one way out, and you walk through this whole experience. And each area had different sensory
Oh,
style engagements. One was like a mirrored room and all these different things. It was very cool, and it kind of gave people an idea of like how these compounds go together and the sensory experiences that you can have. So there's a lot of ways. Again,
oh,
it's about
yeah.
telling the story you want to tell.
Yeah. That's a good point. No, like kind of strategy, have clear the story and also the goals, right?
Yes.
We have, I mean, I'm just trying to recap what I'm learning today. No, I have the final question that is
Yeah.
related, no, to this, no, this area you love, that is leadership and no,
Hmm.
intentionality. Sorry. So
Yeah.
you're passionate about this, no, cultivating also change for organizations through your Rockway Mastermind series. What are you seeing event professionals struggle with most when it comes to executing this new, more intentional approach to trade shows and events?
Yeah. So super easy answer on this. One is that they're just not supported enough, right? So most event professionals working at corporate companies, they are overworked, understaffed, under-resourced. So you're asking somebody to be intentional, to create strategy, to tie that strategy to sales and marketing, then work with their partners to go create it, but then they have to go execute it. Like most of the event managers, directors of events, experiential, senior, global, head of events, they're all different titles, but they're all facing the same thing. Um, they are they're executing too many events, too much volume, and the planning and execution of them swallows them up, which doesn't allow them to perform from a strategic. A lot of them are doing the best they can, and they want to, and they love talking about it, and they can do the work. I think that's, if there was a message of CEOs that were listening, or CMOs, I would say, these event marketers, they want to do the work. They want to be strategic. They understand it. They just need more resources. They probably need less events, and more bang for the buck out of the events that they have. But that is the number one problem that I see them facing. The second problem that I see them facing is probably that they just are not getting the alignment that they want, right? So they're being asked to go to these events and go execute here, but they're not getting alignment from executive sales and marketing on like, hey, what is the one thing that if we accomplish this, we're going to crush it? They're kind of getting mixed signals, different messages. So those are the two big pieces I think that they need.
Okay. When we talk about under resource, no, in your mind, what is like the ideal team to cover
Mm,
an event? Let's say to make it okay, if we have at least these roles as part of the field
yeah.
marketing team or the event marketing team, we have high chances of succeeding during an exhibition. What is in your head like a dream team, if we can say?
Yeah, great question. So I think these teams will be changing over the next few years. Um, But again, depends on size, depends on scale, right? You have some major companies with different divisions, and a lot of these event teams are basically in a way working for and executing for multiple large divisions inside of a company, right? But if we were to boil it down and make it simple, when I say under-resourced, they do not have enough internal staff to get what they need to get done, which then takes your key person, your best event marketer, and sucks them into the details, sucks them into, looking for hotels, contract, all this stuff, right? All the
Okay.
details. But I do think that in terms of roles, most companies that are spending, I mean, man, if you're spending $250,000 plus, maybe not that much, maybe more than that, maybe $500,000 plus or so. I mean, you got to have a director of events. You got to have somebody that owns strategy and owns the results, sitting at the table with sales and marketing, working with them. You have to have that person. That person then needs probably, I don't know, I mean, you name it, 1, 2, or 3 or 4, depending on the size and scale, event planner, event manager type people, right? And then I think to a degree, you're probably going to need somebody in sales enablement. You're going to need somebody that is following down the line these leads, working with sales, partnering with sales, and making sure that these touch points at these events and trade shows are meaningful and intentional. And again, that operates by scale. Certain companies are larger. They need certain specialty people, a trade show program person, a host event person, right? There's specialties that can branch out from those event planner and event manager people.
I love that. And there is a concept that I have, like also read. You also have talked about this in your podcast. This kind of what does emotionally intelligent event execution look like?
EQ, yeah. I mean, well, I think it's kind of the overarching message that we're talking about here, which is you have to begin with the end in mind. You have to be strategic, you have to be intentional, and you have to be trying to accomplish something. Because if and I think a lot of event managers, event marketers, directors of events, that they're all trying to do this, but they have too much. They're overrun. They're running hard and fast. So, and hard to get the attention of the people above them, hard to get a seat at the table in these conversations. So I think the EQ and leveling up is, you have some really great event marketers that are, I think, VP executive level types, the way that they think and the way that they kind of move. And then you have a lot of event planner, event manager type people that do really great work for companies, but they're very set on the execution, the logistics, they'll manage the budget, I mean, that's 100% needed. But that jump, there's a little bit of a jump there, right? And I think all companies are going to require both roles. But I think that's a differentiating factor. And I think there's a lot of event people that are 100% capable of it and just not being given a chance.
Makes sense. So imagine that we have someone clear and with ownership for the strategy.
Yep.
How is what is the best way on which you can support them? They have a team, they have the resources. What is your role in that game?
What's the best way that
You
I can
support
support
them.
them and Rockway can support them?
Exactly.
Yeah. So the most ideal way that we can support them is, number one, is being a strategic partner. So strategic partner is, we are going to talk about your entire event schedule. We are going to break down, what's tier 1, what's tier 2, what's tier 3, what are the most valuable events, what are the ones you got to turn and burn and just go to, right? A little bit of portfolio style conversation planning. Number 2 level of that is having a conversation about each show, understanding the audience. What does that audience want? What is the value, the problem that our client solves for them? And how can we help them with a strategic, intentional plan show up better than they've showed up in the past? How can we give them the big idea? How can we give them a story, a narrative, help them with their messaging, taking some of the branding and marketing their company's doing and feeding into the events? How can we help them tie their sales and marketing initiatives to what they're doing in events? That's kind of the front end of what we would like to do and where we think we bring real value. The next phase of that is taking that and turning that into a design, right? Like an actual booth with execution. And execution comes with pre-show, post-show, during the show, and kind of the way they go about their business, right? And that's the second half of what we do. The last part of what we do is the execution of it, right? We can build trade show booths, we ship trade show booths, we do labor for trade show booths, and we make sure that everything goes smooth. But that's kind of the back half for us, which just kind of comes with it. But I think there's a lot of companies that do that. But I think the number one way we support people is on that front half, so that we ensure that the design and the build and the execution is worthwhile and worth the investment, and that they are really having a meaningful impact on their customers and prospects when they meet with them.
Love it. Yes, I love that you still very hard in the strategy side. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we love to do.
Yeah. And final question, because now I think that we covered what we wanted to chat today. I love your conversation. I have learned so much. I'm sure everyone else listening is the same. Now, only as a kind of wrap-up question, what is one thing that event marketers should be doing different this year? One.
That they should be doing differently this year. That's a good question. I would say if there's one thing that I would be pushing event marketers to do different this year, oh man, there's a good list, but I would say it probably has to do with pushing hard to get alignment with sales and marketing, right? Because sometimes they get some brush off, sometimes they get in execution mode and they want to go. But I think at the end of the day, what they should know is that sometime this will end up falling back on them at some point, right? So they may be fighting for that alignment, for the goals. What do we want to accomplish? Say like, help me help you, right? But when the shows could get cut, the budget could get cut, and they're like, yeah, well, we don't really produce anything. We're showing up just because. And you're like, no. That's not the case at all, right? Because we're aligned with sales, we're aligned with marketing. We're feeding their goals. We're feeding their pipeline. We're helping them close deals. So they have to get to the point where they get that alignment, and then they can go execute and start to show how they are a plug-in, how they are a big part of the customer journey. That would be, and that is way easier said than done, right? That's obviously a high-level thing. So I don't want to make it sound like it's easy, but that's what I would push them to do. Yeah.
This is the wisdom bomb of the day. I love it. Yeah. Thank you so much. Matt, you are doing great stuff. You have a ton of experience, I can tell. So again, we are going to be sharing this podcast with everyone in all our kind of different social media channels, newsletters. So we are going to also include your website in our newsletter so people can learn more about you and your services. Matt,
Great.
I appreciate your time today. It was amazing to connect and learn from you today. Take care.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for listening today. Bye.